Hello and welcome. This is rooflemonger, my friends. Today I have a little bit of a different video for you today, as we are talking about the Hitbox Crossup arcade stick controller. Now, before we get into, well, anything else about it, let me tell you what this video is and isn't. This isn't a promotional ad. If you think this stick is cool and you want to get one, whatever, that's great. More power to you. This also isn't a tech video necessarily, although I'll show you a few things of what the controller is capable of, and if you think that's neat, hey, awesome, more power to you. In a lot of ways, this video is about me getting old. I turned 39 later this year as the time of me making this video, and I've always sort of had a bad left wrist. Here's an artist's interpretation. And very recently on this channel, when I was making the combo guide for the Troublemaker, the one thing about the Troublemaker is he does a lot of dashing in his combos. Like, you just gotta dash over and over, mini dashes, this, that, and the other. Whatever you're doing with this character, rest assured, involves a lot of like micro dashes, because you kind of just gotta do it. That's this character in a nutshell, right? And during the course of making the combo guide, even though they're only a few minutes long, it takes hours of me like practicing stuff, optimizing stuff, you know, just repetition, right? And I've always had a problem with dashes in that I don't like them. If I dash a lot, I can feel it in that left wrist. And when I did it for hours on end, well, it kind of hurt real bad. And this is not something that's going to get easier as I get older, right? So this led me onto the search for a new controller, and that's exactly what this video is about. Now, yes, before we get to anything else, I've tried the Mixbox before. I've tried the Hitbox before. The Mixbox I like for Soul Calibur and Soul Calibur only. I kind of never jived with it with any other game. And the Hitbox is just too small. God bless everyone who likes it. But for me, maybe down the road I'll get like a custom built one that's like a lot bigger. But it's just too small for me, right? So we have the Hitbox Crossup. So it is exactly like a traditional arcade stick. This is what I grew up with, or, you know, going all the way back in the 90s in arcades, right? I understand this. Plus, it has, well, these extra buttons. And what are these extra buttons? Well, they are left, down, right, and the bottom one there, that's up. I know that sounds weird, but if you've seen like a Hitbox style controller, then you kind of get it. And I want to just talk about this and how it's been working for me ever since I got it. So here is the stick itself. And as you can see, works like any other stick. Works like any other stick. You know, we're doing DNF Duel right now. We're going to go over a couple of games in a moment here. But, you know, oh, here's my basic attacks, this, that, and the other. That's great. But, once again here, these are directions, and this is the up button here. As you can see, I just tap it, I go up. Fancy enough. If I hit back, I go back. If I hit forward, I go forward. I hit down, I go down. And this is basically an alternate layer of control on top of what I already have with the joystick, which is what you understand. So, at the bare minimum, I said dashing. Left wrist ain't what it used to be. It was never great to begin with, right? Dashing, I can still do it the old-fashioned way. I wish DNF Duel had a dash button like Guilty Gear Strive, though. Oh my god. Anyways, but I can still do it the regular way, but I can also just do it here. I don't even need to use my left hand at all to do a basic input like a dash, which is fantastic. It does not matter what the game is, as long as dashing is a factor. I can do it the old-fashioned way, which I never cared for, or I can just use these fancy dancy buttons. And a lot of characters over the years I played, like, they have very specific set plays, specific oki. Like, say, Old Man Tiok here. If I do heavy Mexican Typhoon, I'm always guaranteed at least 2 dash ups, right? And before, I'd have to go like, and crank my wrist, and I was never a fan of that, even back in the day. When I was younger, my wrist was better. I was still never a fan. But now, just, you know, kind of leisurely here, I can just hit the button here and not engage with my bad wrist. That feels pretty good. I'm a big fan of that. Now, how about a game like the King of Fighters? So obviously, much the same here. I can use these buttons here that count as left, down, right, and up, like the D-pad on a controller, so it makes it perfectly legal in tournaments and all that kind of stuff. And that's great. So once again, I can still do that. But King of Fighters, here's where one of the other ease of life kind of things, ease of use, if you will, is the jump button here. So hops, I know some people hops are difficult in King of Fighters, which is very unfortunate, right? Myself, I've never had too much problems over the years. Like, it's just something I've always inherently understood, I suppose. In King of Fighters 15, I believe a hop has to be 4 frames or less of holding up specifically, because if you hold up too long, you get a proper jump. And since there's a jump button here, you can just tap it. So one thing I used to do a lot back in the day is for hops, I always would like hold up and immediately hold down. Now that doesn't do anything in and of itself, other than it immediately gets your hand away from the up, right? So that's how you trick yourself into hopping, is you rip your direction away from up as fast as possible. And say if you want the super jump or hyper hop, much the same here, just kind of do that. And that I always actually found very stressful on the wrist, right? After a long session of King of Fighters, my wrist would be kind of sore. Now, with this, I just tap my thumb. Easiest thing in the world. I don't got to worry about it. Just tap my thumb. We're golden. What if I want that hyper hop, right? Like, do I got to do that hard motion again? Nope. Just hit down forward or down back or whatever, and then tap the jump button. And you get the easiest hyper hops you ever done seen in your life. It's fantastic. Makes life a lot easier. So if you're trying to do the big combo, you know, just trying to do this, that, and the other, makes it the easiest thing in the world. No big deal. That simple, right? So just having these extra buttons, the extra jump button, like the dashes are great in and of themselves. This is basic movement, right? That makes life just so much easier across a lot of games that you don't have to use your other arm. You can just save the motions, right? You just tap, tap, tap. And yes, I know like a regular hitbox can do this as well, but regular hitbox doesn't exactly have the joystick on it, right? And just having jump button here, very easy. The way the splay works is the way you kind of curve your hand here to fit the buttons. Your thumb's going to naturally be resting in roughly this position anyways. So the jump button, you're going to use this in every game. And King of Fighters jumps matter a lot more than the average fighter, right? So it just makes life super easy. So the basics of it are this. It has all the ease of use of the joystick. If you play on an arcade stick, it's amazing. But it also just makes your life just that much easier with a lot of the basic movement stuff, right? You still have the usual button display, just more movement options. Now, that's great. Like, once again, my main purpose here with a controller like this, looking at this controller, and I will try more in the future as well, is I am more concerned, honestly, about comfort rather than tech. I want to be able to end a gameplay session without my left wrist hurting, because that shit sucks, honestly. I don't want that to happen, because I'm going to be playing fighting games till I'm like in my 50s and my 60s. That's just how it's going to work, right? So I want to save the wrist. So that's great. But of course, naturally, there is tricks as well. There are a lot of things that can make your life easier in a lot of games. So, well, let's talk about it here. I'm known as a fan of big boys and grapplers, so let's give you a grappler example. So let's pick Street Fighter V, and a classic example of a grappler here in Zangief. So the thing here is, naturally, you probably know how the spinning pile driver works, right? 360 motion, hit a punch. And of course, naturally, we don't actually do a true 360. We do more like a 270, right? Forward to down to back to up, and then we hit our punch. Works out great. Thing is here, and in the essence of saving my wrist from as little motion as possible, right? We can actually make this a little bit easier using that jump button. Because now all we have to do, instead of just the usual here of rolling all the way up and getting a pile driver, we can actually just do half circle and then hit up in the button. And it makes life easier. And it's honestly, to me anyways, it feels like I can do pile drivers just a little bit faster, right? And of course, much the same here. It can work off basic, it can work off EX. All you gotta do is just a half circle, either direction. It doesn't particularly matter which direction you want. And just hit jump and whatever attack button at the same time. And then all of a sudden, easy peasy, spinning pile drivers. That's great. Someone like E Honda, he has a command grab as well. Although it's a little different as it's just a half circle back, right? You don't gotta do a full 360. And the thing is, you can also make life a little easier and have a nice little gimmick attached, as you can just hold forward and you can just hit down back like that, down back, boom, and you get it, right? So obviously this motion is not too difficult in and of itself, but the one little gimmick here is for someone like Honda, he doesn't necessarily have to grab the frame you're done the motion, right? He can actually walk forward a little bit. And it's still get it. And since you're holding forward the whole time, you're never letting go while you're hitting your down back to get your motion, you can actually get that easier. Now, it is possible without this tech. You just do half circle back, hit forward, and walk forward a frame and do it. It's just the timing's a little bit more strict and a little bit more unforgiving, because just the act of doing your half circle back and then hitting forward, like that takes time in itself, versus if you're holding forward and just doing this, you're moving forward on frame 1. The first possible frame you can move forward, you will, which just makes it just a little bit easier on you, right? Like, it's only a couple pixels, but, you know, for a command grab, a couple pixels is the difference between landing it or not, right? So that's neat tech. Now, for charge move gimmicks, yes, stuff like that will work. You can just hold back and plink. Now, for back forward charge moves, like, it's not that big of a deal. Like, honestly, like, maybe Street Fighter 6 with, like, that frame perfect guile sonic boom thing. I don't know. If that's how this works, then it's trivial on this setup, right? You just hold back and just hit both buttons at the same time. If it's just about hitting the buttons at the same time, well, then this is going to be your easiest sonic boom ever for a perfect boom, right? But normally it's not too big of a deal because you just hold back and then you just hit forward and punch, right? So whatever. But for things like a flash kick, this is where, once again, that jump button comes into play, right? For flash kicks, you never have to let go of down back. Just simple as boom. Just hit your jump button and whatever kick at the same time, and you get the world's easiest flash kick. Awesome, right? So that can help your reaction time just a little bit, where you don't have to move your lever up just a little bit. That takes a couple frames, right? Versus just the instantaneousness of boom and instant flash kick. So left-right charge, maybe not as advantageous, although Street Fighter 6, we'll see, I guess, maybe. But for something like a flash kick, a defensive charge move, fantastic. It's great. Also, I've already mentioned here, I love the button dashes. They make my life a lot easier. I'm a big fan. But there's also some other alternate ways of tech. So this device does not let you cheat, right? You can't walk forward while charging back with a sonic boom. Doesn't let you do it. If you're holding forward, hit back, you start moving back. If you're hitting back and you move forward, you move forward. It takes whatever the most recent input is. Although, there is a switch on the side that lets you change how that works. And hopefully I'm showing a picture of that right now. So, when you have the switch set, what happens instead is when you're holding back and hit forward, you just go to neutral. Nothing happens. If you hold forward, hit back, go to neutral. So once again, it's like you're doing no input now. And this can actually lead to tech in and of itself. Because if I were just to hit forward, hit back, let go, that counts as another forward. Like here. Look at my inputs here, right? So hit forward, I'm hitting back now, nothing. Let go back, counts as another forward. So now that means something like this can happen, where I can basically plink dash with these buttons. Because it's forward, neutral, forward really quick. So that's another alternate movement scheme. Like, I'm happy enough just doing this, right? As long as I don't got to use my wrist, I'm good. I'm good. But if you're looking for alternate tech, that's something you can do. Now, in the end, what I'm trying to show you here is less, you know, something to be abused and like all the sick tech, right? This is a matter of comfort in the end for me. This is how I like to play. This is how I've been playing fighting games for over 30 years. I use the joystick. I play on the arcade stick for almost every game. There's a couple examples where I don't, like Dragon Ball FighterZ, once again because of my wrist, and I'm bad at instant air dashing on an arcade stick. I play on pad instead for the ease of use. But this is great. I like this a lot. Once again, I get to play the way I like to play, how I've been playing all my whole life, and I get some of the ease of use and some of the benefits of just this stuff. Like, just walking forward and just being able to hit jump without having to move my arm. I can just jump whenever I want. That's great. That's basic. That's like, that's zero tech, right? Just jumping. But just being able to jump without having to, like, move my wrist. Anything that saves my wrist, I'm a big fan of. A lot of the gimmicks and gewgaws you find on any given Mixbox Hitbox controller, that all works here because, once again, you have full control here, you have full control here. You got two sets of controls, right? So, like, I can do whatever I want. But in the end, just the basic stuff works out great. If you're like me, you're getting a bit older, you don't want to give up the arcade stick, I think this is a very viable alternative because it gives you some of the power of the Hitbox. Not all of it. I think if you're just looking to game the system, I think the Hitbox is a better device in the end, like straight up. And like I said, in time, I'll probably have a custom hitbox made for myself, more to my specifications, right? Because I like having wrist room. I usually play on my lap. And also, like, the build of this controller is very good. Just for a frame of reference, the arcade stick I normally use is the Victrix. And I am very happy to tell you, without any shadow of a doubt, for a basic, normal arcade stick with all these extra fancy buttons, the Victrix is the single best arcade stick ever made, period. Period. It's good. So compared to that, like the build, I guess, is not as good because, you know, there's harder edges, all that kind of stuff. So compared to that, and this is not a knock to this stick, but the build isn't as good, right? The Victrix is simply in a category of its own. But then again, the Victrix doesn't have all these extra buttons to work with. So there you go, right? But yeah, so if you're in that mindset, man, you're getting older like me, you know, you want to start saving your wrist, but you don't want to give up the arcade stick, I think this is something very valid to try. Also, I would recommend, if you can find one, borrow one before buying it, trying out a hitbox just to see if it is for you. For some people it is, for some people it isn't, but still, I think this potentially is the future of how things go. When we started this whole crazy fighting game journey, worrying about getting old and playing fighting games wasn't on our minds, right? Like, you know, video games for kids, right? And like, you know, only kids play games. And now here we are, a lot of the FGC, I figure, of all competitive gaming, the FGC is definitely the oldest by a mile, right? And we're only getting older, and a lot of us, if we're not already there, a lot of us are pushing 40. I'm going to be 40 next year. Oh my God. So if we want to get old, well, we don't want to get old, but we're getting old here and we want to keep going here, we got to look at alternate designs and just alternate ways of playing, be it this kind of stuff, be it a hitbox or a mixbox, and just anything, or a pad, because the pad I feel is a lot less stress on the old digits than maybe an arcade stick is. But as we're getting older, we're going to need to take advantage of the technology that's given to us, and I think the Crossup is actually a pretty solid way to do it. So once again, this isn't necessarily a review, and there's definitely a lot more weird tech and all that kind of stuff you can look at. I'm just giving you examples that I think are neat because they save my wrist. I don't got to use my wrist as much, right? And if you want to check it out, there's all sorts of stuff for you to find on the internet. But anyways, that is my not review of the Hitbox Crossup. For what I want out of it, which is comfort. That is the main thing. Comfort above all else. I think it works. I think it's the real deal. The only thing I can knock is specifically, and this is a hyper-specific scenario, it works on all PS4 games, and it works on all I'm playing on a PlayStation 5, as you can see. It works on all PS4 games on PS5, but it does not work on PS5 games on PS5 yet. So here I am, I got two DNF duels, right? I can play the PS4 DNF duel with this arcade stick, but I can't play the PS5 DNF duel, because it's a custom arcade stick. It's not an officially licensed Sony product, and unless it's an officially licensed Sony product, it's tough luck, right? But still, you can always play the PS4 version on PS5, and over time, maybe there's a firmware update or there's another piece of hardware you can put in here to make it work just fine. But still, small thing, and usually the PS4 versions on PS5 have better input delay than the PS5 version. So if that matters to you, well, there you go. So anyways, my friends, that's my thoughts on the matter. That's my opinions on it. And whatever conclusions you'd like to draw from it, feel free to draw those conclusions. That all said, we're at the end of the video. So thank you very much for watching. Hope this video has found you well, and go out and play some fighting games.